Gaelic, or as the Scots would say, a Gaelic language. That's not garlic, that's a Gaelic language song. And Rich has such a beautiful voice to have that sort of lilting island feel to it. And again, by island, in this case, we mean the Hebrides, not somewhere in the South Caribbean. But these crankies, Sue has just been such a force in introducing to the greater Seattle community. She got really fired up about it. Rich and I know Sue best as being a kind of a mainstay of the Seattle folk scene for many, many years now. A great step dancer, a great accompanist, a great fiddler, of a Cape Breton style mostly. But she got the cranky bug, and I must admit, when she said, "Skye, you've got to come see these crankies," I'm not sure I quite was with the program. But subsequently, she's developed this Crankie Festival now in its second year. Last year we had some beautiful Appalachian singers. Was some of you here last year? You got a chance to hear it? It was fabulous, wasn't it? You got a chance to explore some of the Appalachian traditions related to crankies. And what the essence of it is telling a story. And I guess the realization that I've had as a kind of participant observing all this is storytelling is more vital and important now than I think it's ever been. The things that bring people together to celebrate, to learn, to share some time together, the performance, the audience parts, it is timeless. And one of my favorite memories of all this cranky business was when a young lady was watching and saw Sue doing the cranking, and she turned to her mother and said, "Mom, it's better than TV." And I thought, we folk artists have hope yet. We're going to now do a great story that this is the first official performance, isn't it,
yes.
Sue? About an Antarctic expedition, and because the story is so well told in the narrative, I'm going to stop now and give just the pipes a real quick little tune-up before we get into the cranky here. This is a different type of instrument perhaps than you've seen before. It's a Scottish small pipe propelled with an arm bellows under my left arm, much like the Ulan pipe of the Irish tradition. But the fingering on the chanter is exactly like a Highland pipe, but as you'll hear here, about a third of the volume, maybe even half. And that's a Scottish small pipe, quite a different sort of tone. So I'm ready, if you guys are ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Unlike so many of the Antarctic expeditions of the 18th and early 19th century, the Scottish National Antarctic Expedition of 1902 to 1904 is a happy tale. No one starved and no one died. It is considered to be the best planned polar expedition of the time, and it was a true scientific expedition. Over 1,000 new species were discovered, and the climatic data they gathered is still being used today. The crew of 25 included zoologists, biologists, cooks, carpenters, and a piper. The expedition was led by William Spears Bruce, an intensely patriotic Scot and a passionate scientist. He had little time or patience for political niceties. In other words, he had no public relations skills. A close friend described him as being as prickly as the Scottish thistle. Yet, he was much beloved by the crew and by the Scottish people. The narrative for this story from this point on was taken from the book The Scotia, which was written by 4 of the scientists on board. Most of the reproduced pictures were taken by the leader, William Spears Bruce.
The vessel was a bark-rigged auxiliary steam screw steamer of about 400 tons, having a length of 140 feet and drawing about 15 feet of water. With her new engines and a boiler, a speed of fully 8 knots was attainable. Needless to say, the vessel, in spite of her lines, was of immense strength. At her stem, there was no less than 9 feet of solid timber, while her wooden walls, at their thinnest part amidships, were 25 inches thick. Being composed of 3 layers of simpers, it could withstand the greatest ice pressure imaginable. The voyage of the Scotia commenced on the 2nd of November in 1902. As it was, we were not allowed simply to slip our cable and vanish, for even the Kirks scowled to see us off, a proceeding which may have been responsible for a local piper's condemnation and lament. Stands Scotland where she did, when a ship can sail on the Sabbath, with pipes playing and people singing, not songs, but profane songs. Profane, such as Auld Lang Syne.
Should old acquaintance be forgot, and never brought to mind, should old acquaintance be forgot, and auld lang syne, for auld lang syne, my Jo, for auld lang syne, we'll tak a cup o' kindness yet, for auld lang syne.
November 8th. Headwinds made the sea very choppy and forced us considerable to the westward, off our course. November 9th. Sick and miserable. November 10th. Very sick and very miserable. Father Neptune claimed toll of several who were becoming new citizens of his realm. Some of the old salts even found things a bit lively, but not even the worst on the board reached the second stage of mal de mer, where things were so bad that one is afraid that the ship will not ever go down.
On January 28th, the barometer fell steadily with a generally overcast sky and a misty haze, which restricted our view to a short distance. We were now in a region frequented by icebergs, so that a sharp lookout was kept for those unwelcome neighbors so soon to become our almost constant companions. It was with much satisfaction that we saw how well suited our vessel was for the work undertaken. In the skillful hands of Captain Robertson, she threaded her way with ease through a seeming labyrinth of real polar pack ice, some of which was from 15 to 20 feet thick. In the early morning of February 6th, we passed several large bergs on the port bow. On a loose piece of ice near one of them were resting a large number of penguins, who were much startled by our sudden appearance, jumping into the water with loud cries. Several icebergs were passed, the most characteristic being those of the tabular form, with perfectly smooth sides, as though they had been chiseled of masses of beautiful alabaster. Others again that had been exposed for some time to the action of the sea were beautifully excavated into a series of lofty arches and deep caverns, which sparkled in bright sunshine with many-colored tints, while ever and anon the swell rushing in, burying the sides in masses of foam, while their presence at night could be distinguished by the roar of the surge as it dashed against their weathered sides.
On February 4th, we established a place to settle in for the winter. The ship being iced in, we could begin other kinds of research. By 7:30 a.m., all hands were at work. The first duty was to quarry the water. That may sound a somewhat confused expression at first hearing, but it was literally the case. Convenient hummocks not too far from the ship were selected, and large pieces of ice broken off with picks and drills and sledged up to the ship, where a day or two's store was always kept stacked on the main hatch. The ice was melted down in a large copper pot standing on the galley stove, and so a splendid supply of most perfect water attainable. As yet, I have said nothing with regard to our mode of locomotion over the sea ice or glaciers, but it must not be supposed that we traveled on foot. It was very rarely that the snow surface was hard enough to sustain a man's weight. Our almost invariable mode of locomotion was with the aid of Norwegian snowshoes or skis. These are long, narrow strips of wood, varying from 6 to 8 feet in length and from 3 to 5 inches in breadth, with the foremost end pointed and raised up some 4 or 5 inches. We seldom, all the winter through, went half a mile beyond the ship without our skis.
One day, waiting for the ice to thaw and for us to be back on our way, Piper Gilbert Kerr decided to test the effect of pipe music on penguins. He played to them on his pipes, but neither rousing marches, nor lively reels, or melancholy laments seemed to have an effect on these lethargic, phlegmatic birds. There was no excitement, no sign of appreciation or disapproval, only sleepy indifference. Except for one.
At last, the day of homecoming came. We would have liked to quietly slip home and escape it, but thousands longed to give us a welcome, and the day was really theirs. Soon, the little mermaid of the Millport Marine Station met us and signaled she had a communication to deliver, which proved to be a telegram from the king to the leader in the following words. I am commanded by the king to congratulate you and the officers and crew of the Scotia on your and their safe return, and on the completion of your important additions to the scientific knowledge and discoveries in the southeastern part of the Weddell Sea, Nolies. That night, the Scotia, to the salvo of guns, the shrieking of fog sirens, and the cheering of the multitudes, proceeded upstream and let go her anchor at Garnock Bay, the end of her 30,000 miles of wanderings. And of that little band of us, comrades, for 22 long months, each went his separate way. The end.